So let's start. So this is Royce Aguilar. I'm an equity research analyst of First Metro Securities. I'm in charge of the retail research division. So whatever you see in the website, it goes through me. The reports that you see there, it goes through me. So for this episode, we will explain to you what happened in the month of Feb and what to watch out for in March. What are our long-term stock picks? What are some traders playbook picks that we like to highlight in the coming in this month, right? And of course, your favorite Q&A. All right, so let's start. So for those for the first timers, we have we use this outline always. What happened in the previous month, what we think will happen or what to watch out for in the month of March, or long-term stock picks. For those who always attend, alam niyo na to, but of course, now we updated some of the target price for our top picks. And of course, we will explain to you, at least ito yung bago, right? In Traders Playbook highlights, what are picks, and question and answer portion. So let's discuss. This is Feb, This is Feb. In Feb, despite the volatile month, we were actually just down by barely, right? We even closed at 7,311, right? And year to date, the PSI is still up by 2.6%. That's as of yesterday. If we include today, that's above 3% already. All right. So let's discuss what made the market go up in the early part of Feb, right? So we saw some easing of quarantine measures. I believe that's where at least Metro Manila and some cities were downgraded to alert level 2. Diba? Early part of last month. And then there was this removal of facility-based quarantine for fully vaccinated and RT-PCR tested travelers, right? So probably some of our OFW relatives or friends na meet natin agad without them going through this quarantine, facility-based quarantine, right? So of course, that's good for the market, right? Because it gives them more allowance to consume already with the family, diba? Imbis na nasa loob ng hotel. And then in terms of economic data, we saw all-time high in remittances this last 2021, despite being under this Omicron variant. So the remittances even surpassed pre-pandemic levels. So that's something to take note. But of course, at the latter part of the month, the market was dragged by one main reason: higher oil prices brought by Ukraine and Russia issue. Right? I highlighted, okay, I can easily say na bumaba yung market because of the Ukraine-Russia issue. But I highlighted why we specifically went down. It's because of higher oil prices. We have to keep in mind that Philippines is a net oil importing country. We can blame a lot of people for this one. But of course, to summarize, higher oil prices siya. Bakit tumataas yung oil? Bakit tumataas yung gasoline prices every week, di ba? It's because of the Ukraine-Russia issue. And of course, I would like to highlight the etymology, the source of what's happening between Ukraine and Russia. Of course, I like to use a source here, CBS News. So you may have some other sources, but I like to stick with my reliable source ever since, di ba? Yung mga reputable sources. Of course, I would like to highlight this is the fact, right? And then mention later some analysis from experts. Yun yung medyo opinion, right? But I'd like to mention the facts of what's happening between Ukraine and Russia. So, in the late 1700s, much of Ukraine's territory became part of the Russian Empire, right? So, you see Ukraine fought for independence in the early 20th century, right? But they lost and they became part of the Soviet Union. Okay, so under Stalin's grip in the 1930s, Ukrainians' farmland and wheat were confiscated, and the resulting famine killed an estimated 4 million people. So, fortunate for Ukraine, they declared their independence after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. So, at that time, a significant part of the Soviet nuclear arsenal was located within Ukraine's borders, and it agreed to transfer those weapons in Russia. So, in recent years, Ukraine's democratically elected government has grown closer to Western Europe, even as cultural ties to Russia persist, especially in the nation's east. So now, according to CBS News, Putin's ambition to restore the Russian Empire has moved beyond the annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula, which his forces seized in 2014. If you recall, back in 2014, the market moved a bit on this news where there was this invasion and then annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. Before kasi kay Ukrainian, now it's kay Russia na. So yeah, as mentioned, Russia's invaded part of Ukraine before, diba? And this was specifically in Crimea. As Putin mentioned, he claimed that the assault was just a defense of ethnic Russians who live in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region, who've never supported the country's relatively new pro-Western government. Western, aka, diba, sina US, etc. So, si Putin used the invasion to literally claim part of Ukraine for Russia. So, the annexation is not recognized by the international community, but Russia has controlled the territory since 2014. So, since this annexation, this proxy war has been waged in Donbas between Russian-backed forces and the Ukrainian government. So, in 2015, may peace deal, but the fighting continued and left more than 14,000 people dead. So, earlier this week, diba, si Putin unilaterally recognized independence of two breakaway regions in Donbas. So just to compare, 'di ba parang sa Philippines merong Sabah, 'di ba? Parang yun eh. Parang yun yung approach niya. Parang yun yung just to compare. Of course, may difference, but just to give you some background to make it clear. So, yung Donbas, it's a self-declared People's Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk. So, the move led to the US and its allies imposing new sanctions on Russia. So this is, yun yung fact, diba? Kasi yun yung history. So what does Putin want? So ito na yung may analysis. This could be taken, you could agree on this, you could not agree on this. So Russia's strongman leader speaks often of the ethnic ties between Russia and Ukraine and warns against NATO expanding further eastward towards his borders. So according to retired General McMaster, Putin was trying to restore Russia to national greatness. So, di ba, we may mention yung history kanina. This goes back to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. So, si Putin daw has been driven by this obsession with restoring Russia to national greatness, and his plan to do that is to not make Russia great. But according to him, it's really to drag everybody else down and diba? So, basically, yung main goal daw niya is to restore Russian influence. According to another CBS News source, Putin's objective is to keep Ukraine, which is the second largest country in the continent, from making common cause with the democracies of Europe. So, what motivates Putin, according to former NATO ambassador, is a concern about the independence of Ukraine, or worry that a functioning, successful, prosperous democracy in Ukraine poses a direct threat to his rule, diba? Because it will give the people in Russia that in the idea that they too could enjoy what Ukraine enjoys and could rise up against its autocratic rule, diba? So, yun yung opinion na. You could agree, you could disagree, but this is one analysis from CBS. Now, I would like to show you this slide. This, I've been seeing data of this one, several sources, usually ginagamit na yung US S&P 500. Some, I'm seeing PSEI. So, I decided to use PSEI only 3 months after this specific geopolitical event. So for those listening to Spotify, Apple, Google, I'll mention to you. So first geopolitical event was when Iraq invaded Kuwait. That was back in August 1990. 3 months after that, the PSI was down by 36%. Of course, we could easily, say na dahil sa Iraq invasion of Kuwait, but there were other reasons. Diba? Meron 1990 earthquake. Diba? Tapos, I believe na 1989 may coup d'etat pa. So, those were, I would just like to mention, because I would like to I have a point later, right? I'll mention first the geopolitical events. First is the second is US terrorist attacks in 9/11. 3 months after, 13% down yung PSCI. And besides the 9/11, meron pang local, 'di ba, yung mga political protests against then President Joseph Estrada, si ERA. 'Di ba? That could be one of those reasons that exacerbated the drop of the PSCI. Let's take a look at the other geopolitical events. 2003, Iraq War began. 3 months after that, the PSCI was up by 20%. 2014, diba? We talked about earlier when Russia invaded and subsequently annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. That was 2014. PSCI, 3 months after, up 8%. Brexit, June 2016, 3 months after, PSCI unchanged. 2017, North Korean missile test. Yun yung mga ICBM type of missiles nila. July 2017, 3 months after, PSCI up by 3%. You will notice that those years that the PSCI was up, yun yung nag-rebound yung economy, right? No significant local risks, right? So of course, the key takeaway here is that we have to not only consider solely what's happening outside the country, but we have to consider what's happening inside the country as well. And as we've mentioned, diba, if you take a look at our event nung January 28, diba, nag-present ako along with my colleagues about our outlook, diba, we're positive. And so far, nag-reopen yung economy and the PSI is acting relatively well compared to peers. Keep in mind, if you take a look at other global markets, they're significantly down. Us, we're still up this year by 2.6%. US down double digit na, right? Because we have local catalysts. So we're hoping 3 months after Russia attacked Ukraine this year, up pa rin yung market. So that's how we should take a look at this event, not isolated sa geopolitical event. So now, going back to the PSCI, in terms of technical analysis, you saw how the PSA managed to bounce from its 7,200 levels. So the 7,200 levels is still intact. matibay pa. Right now, we close at back above 7.4. Now, the PSCI is trying to retest the 7.450 again, diba? Once it breaks above 7.450, 8,000 na po yung susunod. Main recommendation, continue to hold. Investors can accumulate more once the PSCI breaks above 7.450 and hopefully it stays above 7.450. There were a couple of instances already that the PSCI broke above 7.450 but di niya na-maintain yun kahit 1 week man lang, right? So, the technical analysis, the fundamentals of the Philippines remains to be strong. So, something to think about accumulating. So, to watch out for this month. So, will the production number continue to subside? Meaning yan, COVID-19 reproduction number. We're seeing several public election events, right? And so far, cases have been minimal, diba? Pababa na pababa despite public election events. So, we're hoping that would continue. There were several rules naman COMELEC implemented in terms of the nature of these public election events. In terms of economic data, OF remittances, March 15, Central Bank interest rate decision for the Philippines, March 24th. US, very important month. In terms of economic data, jobs report on Friday, inflation March 10th, central bank interest rate decision March 17th. It's just for US, it's probable that they will increase rates. It's just a matter of is it 25 bips or 50 bips. For global, China inflation, then EU central bank interest rate decision. The key for the coming months is central bank action, okay? Especially starting this month. Campaign season. What's important is ano ba yung policies ng mga tatakbo? What are their policies, and then you will see there where do they agree, where do they disagree in terms of sectors na might affect the Philippine Stock Exchange. Yun yung mga kailangan natin panoorin. Of course, it's very important also take a look at survey and take it with a grain of salt, especially dapat mag-stick tayo with the reliable surveys. Of course, sino yung leader, ano yung economic policy niya, the market can price it. Ukraine and Russia developments and its impact on oil prices and global inflation. Something to continue to watch out for. And then, you will notice a lot of companies are releasing their earnings, both Philippines and US. So, please stay aware. We have been uploading in our daily reports earnings already. So, please stay tuned. And then, FTSE rebalancing effectivity, March 21st. The important thing here is, surprisingly, SM got removed from FTSE because of liquidity reasons. We're not 100% sure why that occurred, but nevertheless, the fundamentals of SM remain unchanged. Basta nasa PSI, MSCI pa siya, no problem in terms of flows. But that's why I put it here because if SM drops prior to the effectivity date, something to take advantage of. Kasi keep in mind, fundamentals have not changed. May nagbago ba sa SM, the company? Wala naman. So in terms of our stock picks, I'd like to reiterate to you our top 10 picks. We have Jollibee for consumer. We have upgraded the target price of Jollibee given its recent earnings. Diba? You saw its earnings, how it rebounded well. Profitable na ulit. We're seeing groundwork. We're seeing good progress from the Smash Burger and CBTL business. Its business transformation program, it's now laying clear path of profitability. So from 281, our target price now for Jollibee is 289. For FB, we remain positive on the counter. Our target price is 115. It's a reopening winner for us, especially bulk of its top line comes from the alcoholic beverage where it has a 90% market share. Diba? Usually pag lalabas na tayo, we meet up with friends, we go to vacation, diba? Pag adult na tayo, diba? We tend to drink kasi it's a social drink. Beer is a social drink and we like to experience more social gathering, especially alert level 1 in some areas. So target price is 115. For HI, target price is 83. At yung price niya is improving after it got removed from PSCI, diba? Nagbumalik na sa 60 pesos yung levels. And fundamentals wise, it's a reopening winner since most of its businesses are located inside malls. And we're now, more than ever, since the pandemic began, we're now allowed to go in malls, especially mga bata. And marami na navaccinate, good sign. So it gives malls more headroom for higher sales. So target price for RHI is 83 pesos. For SM, yes, target price 1,265. Take advantage of this highest market cap name, and fundamentals wise, it has the largest exposure across sectors where we see recovery to be robust: retail, real estate, and banks. Okay, for Land, 52 pesos our target price, another reopening winner as more people go into malls, as more people have enough capacity to buy property. Diba? We mentioned economic data wise na household balance sheets are remained healthy, marami nakapag-ipon, especially mga middle to high income. Remittances remain resilient, diba? All-time high nga noong 2021. So, something property names will have support in terms of economic data. Same for RLC. It's also a property name. Unique thing here is, diba, yung recently listed yun na REIT, it could unlock the company's office valuation. So our target price for RLC is 30 pesos. SMPH, also a mall reopening name. If you take a look at its recent earnings, it has shown resiliency and huge recovery. So that's a welcome development. So target price for SMPH is 48 pesos. To be specific, no, we forecast S&P should deliver 83% rebound in net earnings. There's improved mobility, steady office rental revenue stream, and tenant sales are poised to exceed pre-COVID levels on the back of pent-up demand. So for banks, BPI, our target price is still 111 pesos. Slight upside, but something to consider given that banks' financials are also a reopening name. If you take a look at how management is seeing this year, management expects loan growth to reach 8 to 10% this year, coming from 4.9% growth this year. So some segments are already at pre-pandemic levels. So management expects stronger loans growth this year. So for BDO, our target price is 183. BDO is the biggest beneficiary of economic reopening since since the company, or rather the actual economic reopening is a catalyst for faster loan growth. Security Bank is also a topic, is also one of our topics. Our target price is 150 pesos. Upside will come from rebound in retail banking. Diba? Usually kasi pag sa banking, mas malaki yung margins or yung kita per tao in terms of percentage as compared to corporate banking. So that's why a lot of banks are focusing on retail banking. So one of which is Security Bank. So our target price is 150. And this is the target price and the share price of our top picks, and then the upside. Okay, for those listeners. For SM, target upside is 41%, Ali 33%, SMPH 20%, RLC 56%, GFC 19%, FB 71%, RHI 34%, BDO 41%, BPI 11%, SECB 28%. So huge upside, still double digit upside for all of our picks. So something to take into consideration as the market is showing some bullish signs and reopening is underway. Ito naman yung yung model port. So diba ito yung top picks, how are they performing so far as compared to the PSCI? So outperforming so far, both market cap weight and equal weight. So assuming you bought the start of the year, assuming you bought equally yung names, diba? 3.2% up ka as compared to PSI na up by 2.6%. And then this is our traders playbook hit ratio for those listening. We have a hit ratio of 75% as of end Feb, diba? We have a hit and miss, but it's mostly hit. So we're happy, especially in commodity driven rallies like si SCC, FNI, Nickel, diba, have done well. And then, yeah, we recommended again SCC after it consensus estimates. Interestingly, management already mentioned this, diba, we had a podcast episode with one of Semirara's management. So we're hoping you listen to more of our podcast because that could actually give you some insights into their outlook. So for SCC, we recommended a buy. Umakyat siya ulit kanina after we published the report due to some spillover effect after its outstanding earnings. Record high earnings actually. All-time high earnings for Semirara for 2021. So please, for those who are who has a First Metro Sec account, please take a look at our traders playbook reports. So SCC, Aboitiz Power is also one name that we're recommending from the retail research division. So hindi pa niya na-release yung earnings, but we're expecting a good earnings from Aboitiz Power. So now this is the time we open the floor to questions. Please type in your questions sa Q&A tab. We'll give you 2 minutes to type in your questions. So thank you. All right. So we'll try to answer first the questions under the Q&A tab, right? Okay. So first is SGP has been sliding the last few days, bucking the overall trend. Any insight why this is so? I think we have to view what is SGP. SGP is transmission, diba? It has an indirect stake sa transmission company. What is the nature of the business? Energy. And in terms of the nature of, para siyang Meralco, right? It's one of the more stable names. And since nag-reopen yung economy, investors are looking for faster horses, faster names. So yung mga may hawak ng SGP before, diba, if you notice SGP, umakyat naman siya for a while. But after bumababa ni alert level, investors are shifting to a more riskier name. Yung mga economic reopening name like our picks. So it's more of a shift in preferences to a more to faster horses, to faster names. Yun lang naman siya. But in terms of fundamentals, robust pa rin naman si SGP. I would say NGCP kasi yun naman yung main source of income ni SGP. So I hope that answers the question. Next is it time to sell A-REIT since the dividend yield is lower than the government bond yield rate? That's a good question. For A-REIT kasi, for REITs, right now, it's a buy on pullback for us. No? For A-REIT, if you have A-REIT, you have to evaluate your portfolio. If it's a significant part of your portfolio, meaning is it above 10-20% of your portfolio, kung ako magbabawas ako onte. And then allocate more to faster names, like yung reopening picks namin. But for example, if your REITs naman are like 5, 7, 8% of your portfolio, it's just good to hold pang dividend yield. But if you're a more aggressive type of investor, yeah, it's reasonable to sell muna kasi medyo mataas pa yung mga REITs. Next question is GFC or DED made any moves relating to their possible warehouse REIT offering? Well, usually kasi yung mga we're not the underwriter of GFC or DD. As far as I know right now, minsan na magde-disclose na lang sila na yung time of listing nila, etc. But I believe this year naman sila mag-release, but I'm not aware of the detail. 3 months from now would be the elections. Would that cause volatility because front runners are usually not the winners? Good question. If you attended our January 28th event, diba, with colleagues, one of our risks there was yung elections. Because assuming may manalo na, diba, usually there's a risk na yung post-election euphoria will wane. Kasi now, investors will evaluate your policies. Even prior to the election, may risk pa yan of volatility, especially if dikit yung mga survey, right? Kasi if dikit yung survey, meaning uncertain. So, kung ako yung investor, 'di ba? Parang yung strategy there is you lighten position and then balik ka na lang after election. Usually kasi pag election, it's something that you are not recommended to anticipate. You react. Kasi if you anticipate, you mentioned already, yung front runners are usually not the winners, nagugulat yung market, diba? But yung best example kasi yung 2016 naman, that was a time na clear winner si Duterte. Clear winner, tapos after merong build euphoria, kaya umakit yung market after. Actually, yun yung best case scenario that we're looking at. Clear winner, clear policy, 'di ba? Kasi that will result in a more stable market. Okay. I hope I answered your question. What about telecoms? Yeah, we'll actually we have a plan to publish a report on these telcos sometime this week. So, but just to be clear, Tel is one of our buy pick. It's not our top pick, but Tel is one of our buy picks, mainly because of the growth of its. Of course, one yung fintech niya na business, but other catalyst is the home broadband business. It still has room for growth. But in terms of share price kasi valuations wise, we prefer Tel over Globe right now. Yeah, for the topics, the horizon for the target price is 12 months. Okay, the question is there any effect of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on our strategies? Well, yung main effect ng Russia-Ukraine conflict is for us, assuming it stays among the countries involved right now, like Russia-Ukraine, yung main effect sa atin lang is higher oil prices, right? There aren't significant number of companies exposed to those countries right now. Wala naman. So, yung impact right now is higher oil prices, which will impact yung margins ng mga companies, 'di ba? Kasi taas yung oil prices, mamahal yung transportation, mamahal yung raw materials cost, 'di ba? Yun yung effect sa atin. But other than that, not so much. But the thing here is some companies are hedged in terms of their so hedge sa changes ng oil price, so we have to evaluate that further. But on the top of my head, no, high oil prices lang naman yung main impact. So there is an effect sa high oil prices, and you're seeing the effect now, 'di ba? Sa news, if you take a look at the news, parang araw-araw in-interview yung mga taxi, Grab, jeepney, tricycle drivers, diba? And it hurts them yung pagtaas ng oil gasoline price. So it also has effect sa companies kasi nagtatransport din sila ng materials. So should I sell before elections then buy after? So that's a good let's try to fix that phrase a bit. Yung recommendation namin is to have cash prior to the elections. Probably if you're 100% exposed right now, lighten position a bit, but hold dapat marami ka pa ring hawak, and then use your cash to buy after. Okay, so lighten position a bit before elections and then use enough cash to buy back names after elections. Right? That gives us room rin to provide cushion rin naman just in case 'di ba mag-pull back yung mga market. In terms of the IPOs right now, no, the question, we have a couple of questions regarding IPOs. Yung mga nag-disclose right now ng schedule nila are Bank of Commerce and Raslag. And we've been looking at these companies. In terms of for Raslag, what yung key takeaway ko based sa prospectus is they have a target of 250 megawatts within the next 10 years, right? So that's a huge jump as compared to, I believe, less than 20 megawatts lang yung capacity nila right now. So that's a huge jump. Of course, they're well positioned in terms of the sector that they are in, specifically solar, right? It's relatively small as compared to other companies, but it's getting there. Yung earnings na yung margins are well above 50%, so maganda yung margins niya. For Bank of Commerce, it's your type of company na, yeah, bank, typical bank. We like the financial bank sector as a whole. So technically, Bank of Commerce is a good investment. We like to evaluate it further, especially after they disclose their IPO price, kasi that will give us clearer description of their valuation. But the nature of the businesses that are listing, especially these two, are okay. I hope I answered your question. Yeah, for mining stocks, we discussed, di ba, yung some of our traders playbook pick si Semirara, right? It's one stock that we think meron pang room for upside, and they usually give dividends they disclose the dividends around March. They give it around April, so we think they can continue to give dividends by then. We're looking at for ano kasi, the thing here is we have questions here regarding nickel stocks, right? Ay, mining stocks. Tapos may questions regarding, is it still good to buy nickel? Ako, for Nickel Asia, the fundamentals are robust, di ba? Medyo sharp lang yung pag-increase ng nickel prices. Hence, you're seeing, pag-akyat ng global nickel prices, that's why you're seeing nickel, the stock, also going up. For me, it's a buy on pullback. Yeah, we have to be patient with the prices. You saw sa REITs, di ba? Sa REITs, kahit it pulled back. So, we expect, walang straight line na pag-akyat yan. So, there's always a pullback. So, around 750, 7 pesos, buy nickel around those prices. We think at these prices, sharp yung increase, so buy on pullbacks. Same for DMC. For SEC, we have a recommendation on that. Please take a look at our Traders Playbook report that we uploaded earlier prior to market opening. For REITs, it's a good hedge. You saw our top 10 picks, right? You saw our top 10 picks, and of course, we advocate diversification. So those are economically opening. You can have REITs around less than or 10% of your portfolio. For REITs, of all the REITs listed right now, MREIT and RCR could be a good pick. They have pulled back quite well, so this is a good price for them, for you guys to pick up. And they have yet to fully infuse the properties that they plan to infuse, so may upside pa. So MREIT, RCR for REITs. There's a question here. PEZA has approved work from home at 9010 till March 2022. In post 1st April, this may change to higher work from home office. Which stocks will benefit from greater return to office? That's a good question. In terms of return to office, it benefits not only the office sector, but it also benefits the commercial, like the restaurants, etc., malls, because that's where they will eat lunch. So it benefits property names. But yeah, office, Megaworld is one. Megaworld has a high exposure to office, but in terms of property as a whole, we would like to stick with Ayala Land, RLC, SMPH. Yeah, that's a good question. But if you like a bigger office exposure play, you can take a look at Megaworld. Yeah, why is Double Dragon climbing recently? They disclosed kasi this stock buyback program. So it's a huge stock buyback program that has been driving Double Dragon way off its lows, right? So yeah, that's basically it, if you ask me. Besides the economic opening, I believe that's one of the main reasons why it went up. Will oil and mining sector be in growth trend this year? Yes. I believe so, especially kasi the return of demand, not only locally but globally. Keep in mind yung mining, si Semirara exports to China, nickel exports to China. We have also yung mga gold miners here in the country, they export a lot, right? So we were not only considering the prospects of local recovery in economy, but globally, diba? So we believe that there's a huge upside for these companies. It's just a matter of buying on pullback. Good question. So impact if oil surges, yeah, it can impact consumer discretionary. Kaya nakikita nyo yung the likes of Monday, 'di ba? URC, even FB underperforming the market recently because of higher expectation of higher raw material costs. Okay, but we like select names, FBRHI pa rin, right? We see upside on those two names. Good question. Why did MBT drop after the dividend announcement? I think if you take a look at other banks, no, for other banks, medyo may negative sentiment in the short term. If you notice globally sa news, if you notice globally, uh, banks have been selling off, mainly because of their exposure to Russia. I'm not sure if that could be applied to us. But the thing is, it's somewhat of a global thing. Another reason MBT drop could be a sell on news. A lot of investors are expecting this dividend announcement. But for us, it's an opportunity because at the end of the day, it's this year Metrobank plans to give 3 pesos per share. Around MBT is trading around 57 right now. Let's assume MBT is 60 for easy math. So that's around 5% yield. So why not? Why not buy at current levels? It's a reopening name. It has been a dividend play for the past 2 years. It's a good question. Has FMS done research on the effects of the Public Service Act amendments on the PSEI? This might be needed since telcos have heavy weights in the index. Well, yes. We will actually publish a research on that sometime this week. So please watch out. Okay, so this is a good question. Please watch out for our research. We will publish them on sometime this week. Okay, but the key takeaway there is we still prefer PLDT over Globe. Yan. Okay. What is your outlook for SPNEC when it resumes trading after the recent disclosure? Well, there's a small probability na mag-sell on news, but for me, I think there's a high probability now with details now of which power plants will be infused or will be swapped, right, from Solar Philippines to SPNEC. I think there's a upward bias for SPNEC. Okay, especially may mention pang 2.50 share price. Fortunately, diba, we have a trader's playbook to buy on dips si SPNEC, and then our take profit for SPNEC on the short term is 2.35 and 2.50. So right on the money, hoping it would reach that price, right? So for our other thoughts on SPNEC, please take a look at our trader's playbook reports. For gaming industry, it's a definitely a reopening winner. Something to consider. It's just not one of our priority sector picks, but it's a reopening winner as well. So Bloomberry has recovered quite well post its deletion sa PSEI. So something to consider as well if you still have enough cash after buying our top picks. Hopefully, you still have enough cash to buy other names, and gaming industry could be one. Yeah, but best to stick with the bigger ones na historically better sa sector, historically outperforming sector. You mentioned that here's the next question. You mentioned that as long as there's a clear winner and clear policy, the market would have confidence. What if there's a clear winner with unclear policies? Should we expect the otherwise? Well, if unclear yung policy, what will the markets bet on, right, for the long term? Well, if you take a look at the economy, it's still going to be robust, despite whoever wins. We have solid, robust economic backdrop, right? That could really propel the economy to a higher rebound in the coming years. We specifically expect pre-COVID levels for the economy this year, right? Despite whoever will win. But kasi si market, ano yan forward-looking mechanism. So, if medyo unclear yung policies, of course, the market will price that in. So, hindi nila alam sino yung bet on nila kasi unclear yung policies Unlike nung when Duterte 1, build. Halos lahat yan beneficial kasi infrastructure, it will benefit outside Manila, it will benefit some inside Manila, the businesses, easy access, outside, diba? Outside Manila and the like. So, very important yung policies. Next question is, Meralco is nearing its all-time high. Is it advisable to take profits now or still okay to get the recently announced events? For me, well, it's the same with like I mentioned with SGP, you're seeing some for Meralco kasi. The nice thing about Meralco is it's venturing to for Meralco, it's not only a power distribution company anymore. It's venturing to power generation. And that's where the upside is. Given the economic rebound. Kasi power distribution, if power distribution company ka lang, you just pass on the cost to your consumers and you just get like a fee for distributing the said energy. Now, you're a power generation company. That's where higher margins are. And Meralco is venturing to that. Last 2021, yung generation subsidiaries niya contributed 1.2 billion as compared to 400 million last 2020. So, palaki na ng palaki yung contribution ng power generation business niya. And that's where the upside is. Tapos, nagve-venture pa sa renewables. Diba? So, for Meralco, it's a buy on dips. But relatively smaller allocation as compared to our more to our higher conviction reopening plays, like the top 10 picks that we mentioned. Let me show the screen sa inyo ulit para lang yan. Okay, let's try to answer the last set of questions. Converge has also dropped significantly despite being placed in the PSCI and reporting of strong financials. Any insight why is this are recommended by at current levels? For Converge, we have a target price of 41. We also mentioned this on our report on the Public Service Act, which we will release sometime this week. But to answer your question, probably you're asking why it dropped, right? It's more of, as I mentioned, the SGP, you're seeing a lot more investors shifting to economic reopening names. That's why you notice the higher growth names, di ba? Converge, AC Energy, Dito, Merrimart have dropped way off from their highs. Because nagtitake profit na yung mga tao. Tapos lilipat na sila sa mga faster horses, which apparently are economic reopening names because our economy is reopening. Fundamentals, you're right, it remains strong. Ang laki ng growth. But especially, tumataas may trend right now na lilipat ka to where the economy is right now, where's the upside. The upside is economic opening names, kaya lilipat yung mga investors muna to that. But Converge is still a robust company. It's just that it's relatively expensive and the market has taken that into consideration into their investment strategies. Yeah, what is your outlook on all HC? We have a newly published Traders Playbook report on this one. We published this yesterday. In terms of all HC, we mentioned there that logistics and warehousing are poised for significant growth in the coming years. Number one, meron ka secular trend in terms of growth sa e-commerce, diba? Besides that, yung cold storage, which all HC is venturing in. Especially yung mga restaurants right now are venturing into this cloud kitchen, etc. So, all HC is poised for growth. So, something to buy on dips. Actually, buy on breakout after, once it breaks above 5. That's our recommendation there. For MPI, it's a name na for MPI kasi it's the company is so diverse. That's why investors are trying to figure out, is it a reopening name or is it a safe haven name? But definitely the upside is there, especially for Meralco in tollways business. There's upside, especially as the economy reopens. It's just that it remains to be cheap, significantly cheap, but it's not yet going up. So something to consider, but it has been a laggard for so long. So I get it if you have low exposure on the said name. But yeah, you're correct in mentioning that it is a reopening name. But outlook is definitely going to be better, especially sa power generation tollways business. So we would like to reiterate that this recording will be available both on Spotify and YouTube. So okay, just I think there's one question here regarding Semerara. Is there an updated fair value for Semerara after its earnings? Well, we don't cover Semerara, but we think that there will be higher consensus target price for Semerara in the coming days, weeks, especially after the better than expected earnings. So yeah. So one last question. Let me try to pick one last question. The question here is what is the most stable company? Yeah, it's a very simple yet hard to answer question. Well, definitely on the top of my head, yun yung mga names that have been growing on a stable, yeah, of course, stable growth and gives dividends. So one example is in Meralco. But if you asked me 2-3 years ago, I would have said PLDT Globe, but meron silang growth factor that makes their share price more volatile. Diba? Diba, they went up significantly, then they corrected significantly. So I would say Meralco. But if you ask me, the better question there is what's the most stable company that merong significant growth? Ako, SM. Yan. So I hope I answer your question. Please email us if you have more questions. Thank you everyone for participating in our monthly wrap-up. Please take a look at our Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube recordings for our webinars, okay? You will learn a lot more from there. So thank you everyone. So this has been Royce Aguilar. And as always, in FirstMetroSec, it's #YourFutureFirst. Thank you everyone.